Unfortunately, I can't because I work in intensive care, but this is a last resort. I don't really want to strike, but I don't see any other option anymore. People aren't listening to us. The comments you were reading out this morning about us being selfish, they are so hurtful. Nurses are the least selfish people. I love my patients more than anything. And you hear a lot, why do you deserve more just to do your job? Or you knew what you were getting into. I didn't know what I was getting into. I did not know it would be this short-staffed and I would spread myself so thin and not be able to give what my patients deserve.
So talk us through the conditions that you're working under that you say actually right now it means it's unsafe to continue in that manner.
So, I mean, I work in intensive care. We've got lots of very, very sick, ventilated children, and there's physically not enough of us. The other day I was meant to be on a study day, but I came in, it got cancelled, and I asked, do you want me to just stay? And they said, yes, we'd love you to, because we're so short-staffed. And there was 3 babies that didn't even have a nurse to their name. We were just sort of sharing around to try and look after the patients as well as we could. Now, these are people's children, they're babies. Our patients are people's relatives. They deserve the best care. This is not about us being selfish. This is about us wanting your families to be looked after the way that they deserve.
So for you, is this about pay or is this about conditions?
In all honesty, as much as we do deserve a pay rise, but to me, this is more about conditions. I didn't know what I was getting into with the pay. I was never going to be rich being a nurse, but it breaks my heart to see the conditions and patients not getting the care that they deserve. Some days I'll hand over and all I can say to the nurses is that they're medicated, they're fed, they're alive, but I haven't made a difference to them. I haven't given them the care that they deserved, but I physically haven't got enough hands to do it.
So what are the type of things? I mean, the health secretary said he'd sit down with people in the NHS and talk about what are the things that you need. What would be those things that would make your life and the life of everyone working on your ward and the patients in it easier and more efficient?
It is all down to pay, because if we get paid what we deserve, more nurses will stay. You can employ as many new nurses as you want, and there's been campaigning about getting more student nurses to apply, but we are losing a terrifying amount of nurses, terrifying amount. It's about retention, and if you can't afford to look after your children, turn your heating on, and doing the job that we have to do, whether we're spread so thin, why would you stay?
It does amount to pay, but the problem is we've got 60,000 vacancies at the moment. We can't attract new talent into the profession. I was speaking to a newly qualified nurse on Saturday who, as newly qualified, she's £65,000 worth in debt. She's earning £27,000. That's before tax, national insurance and pension. And we need a decent pay for a decent day's work so that we can fill those vacancies, and then that would stop the short staffing on the wards. As a ward nurse, you have the decision. You might have 4 patients who are going to fall out of bed, 4 who need the toilet, someone who's got difficulty breathing. Which patient do you go to first? And this is why care's being affected. Yeah. You know, as a nurse, I came in because I wanted to hold someone's hand. I wanted to brush their teeth when they were unable to do it. I wanted to make sure that they were comfortable, and you can't split yourself in 2. Wards are running on 2 nurses, you know, looking after all these patients who have demands and they need to be looked after. And as a nurse, it's such a difficult decision that you've got to make. And unfortunately, it is patient care that's suffering.
Nurses have been complaining and crying and begging and asking that we need fair pay and safe staffing, but we are working with skeletal staff.
We all stretch ourselves across 32 patients and we do the job of 2-3 people every day.
Only the other day I saw an advert for an agency that was offering between £30 and £40 an hour, and that is where nurses are going to.
Why don't you just pay us more and we come to work rather than paying somebody from outside more, and I am here already, you pay me little.
The RCN have made it very clear that they will sit down and talk about pay, and Pat Cullen has made it quite clear that there is room for negotiation, but Steve Barclay and Rishi Sunak have not. And they need to just come together and sit down and discuss, and I am sure most nurses aren't expecting to get 19%.
But the interesting thing is, I mean, I'm old enough to remember the last ambulance strike. It was back in 1989. It lasted for 3 months. Ken Clarke thought he'd tough it out. And what happened? At the end of 3 months, the army was running the ambulance service then, and he caved in and gave the ambulance people pretty much what they want. This will have to end in talks. It's nonsense to say the government won't talk. They're going to have to, or people will die.